Guys, Valentine's Day is here. What better way to say I love you than with an original, cozy, and classy Minky Couture blanket? Save 50% using promo code ZONE50. Promo code ZONE50 in stores and online at minkycouture.com. Minky Couture has got you covered this Valentine's Day. DJ and PK, we are joined once again by David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz. David, good morning.
Good morning, David, James, Patrick, Kinahan. What a better way to celebrate Valentine's Day than, it's a few weeks away. What a better way to celebrate the end of January than wrapping up a show with DJ and PK on a Friday. My two favorites, stalwarts of the media, the greatest of all time. Give awards after them instead of give them awards. What else do you need these two?
Really wound yourself up there today, David. That was above and beyond what I've come to expect.
Well, I love you guys. It's just an honor and a pleasure to be with you on a Friday morning, a gorgeous day in Utah with the blue sky, the white mountains. What a place to live. Who cares if we can't get companies that have $1.6 billion worth of sales to give us their nickname?
I want to talk trade deadline with you, David. Let's get right to it. Do you believe the rumors of a 4-team massive super trade and the Suns are in the middle of it? What do you think?
Well, all 4 teams, I don't know which version we're talking about because there have been so many. So if you want to give someone the details who doesn't know them all, that would be fine. I'm up for that. I think all the teams that I've heard, if this is Milwaukee, Miami, Phoenix, am I forgetting anybody? Yes, there's a 4th team. Chicago, maybe? Is that? I don't know which version you're talking. I mean, they're all incentivized to do deals. They all want to do deals, and the league rules have made it very, very difficult to do deals, making them even more complicated, meaning you might have to do 4-team deals to get deals done.
But
so
will they get done?
Sense,
Fans
sure.
want to know, is De'Aaron Fox really going to move? Is Jimmy Butler really going to move? Is Bradley Beal really going to move? You know, the other stuff we can deal with.
It does seem like in history of the league that the trade deadline is a forcing action, right, or whatever that phrase is, that it kind of, it forces people to get deals done and to figure it out. So it does feel as though the trade deadline has that impact and that we would probably get to that point where a deal gets done because of the fact that, that's where there's this thing called a deadline. If you don't get it done, you got Jimmy Butler still on your roster. You have De'Aaron Fox. In the De'Aaron Fox situation may be a little different because you're not trading it for trade deadline value. Or for playoff value, you're trading it for long-term value. And so I think you probably get as much in the offseason for De'Aaron Fox as you get right now. And there might be some reasons why it's easier to do in the offseason than it is to do right now. So De'Aaron Fox, maybe not. So I think that's part of it at this point, I would say. But Jimmy Butler, I don't think they have any real interest in hanging on any longer than they have to, right? Like, it seems like this has gone far enough.
We saw the crowd, and we've seen it maybe for the last time, just to the point of showing so much love to Joe Ingles, right? And we know that Joe Ingles had an incredible connection and a relationship with the fan base. Going forward, how important do you think it is for some of the players, even if it's only one, to have a connection with the fan base to where they are so in love, and it goes beyond basketball, and it seems like it means something that is bigger than the actual game?
I mean, I think I don't know what you do about this, but we're in a very transactional stage as a franchise where everyone is an asset and what their value is as an asset, and you kind of know that when you get them. And so you do – at some point you've got to connect, right? You've got to have a jersey you're buying that you want to have a part of. And when someone in our – and this is not just the Jazz, this is every franchise in the NBA right now and, frankly, professional sports, that when you have your Donovan Mitchell jersey hanging next to your Rudy Gobert jersey that's hanging next to your Gordon Hayward jersey, well, then, like what's happened here? And that's where all professional sports are, right? Like, that's not the Jazz, but and so you do need to have the ability to have players you connect with and have have some sort of, uniqueness to. Joe's unique, though, or some connection to. Joe's unique in just who he is, and so I'm not sure that you can just create that, right? The only player since Joe that might have personality a little bit is Walker. He's pretty funny, but he's also a rookie, and he's just trying to survive, and so he doesn't have the kind of what's the word I'm looking for is a French term.
Je ne sais quoi.
Or no, that's
I don't have any idea what it means.
He doesn't have the carte blanche to go kind of be who Joe was as a character. He's still got to establish himself in the league. So I think this is a risk that we have in college sports right now. I think this is a risk we have in pro sports. Is it just enough to root for the laundry? Like, right? Is that just enough? Because, like, in college football at this point, you're just, you always have been because they've been in and out. They're not there for a long period of time. But now it's even shorter. Like, so you just root for the red because the red works for you. You root for the blue because the blue works for you. And the fact that the guy played for the red last year and now plays for the blue because you paid him more money makes it all right. Like, is that going to work? You're just gonna root for the purple and the fact that, like, there's a real chance that in 3 years we have two guys left on our roster. What's the impact of that? Those are great questions. I don't, it's a different era of sport, and it is why, if you kind of look at NBA fandom right now, there's a huge rise, and if you talk to people, if they're a fan of Ja Morant more than they're a fan of the Memphis Grizzlies, they're a fan of Anthony Edwards more than they're a fan of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then if that player switches teams, they just move with the team, with the player. So there's more of fandoms evolving into a different way where some of these individuals are becoming bigger than that you're following the individual. It's time to launch Locked on Ja.
We should just end it right there. You're not going to top that.
I can go home now.
Pretty much. That was awesome. I have heard fans of multiple teams complain, who are these guys? We don't really know them. And I hear that in multiple sports, college football, college basketball, pro basketball. I get your point on the trend, and I'm sure there's some kid with De'Aaron Fox jersey in Sacramento who isn't liking the rumors, but it is what it is. It doesn't seem to be changing. LeBron and Kevin Durant, they are brands. You don't really identify them with a team because they've played with so many teams. They're LeBron and KD.
Right. Yeah, and I don't, so if we're isolated to a Jazz, as we're in a extremely high level transitional or transactional stage of our franchise, you better really love Craig Bolerjack and Thurl Bailey.
And David Locke and Ron Boone.
That's going to be those are the two that you're going to connect to on a nightly basis, and that's your connection. Is that's the passage of times. Give Bowler a raise, baby. He's the franchise.
I have heard Steve Kerr talk about Steph Curry's. I mean, how many I don't even know what the franchise is worth. I heard him say the number, and I don't remember how many billions it was. But what percentage of that value is Steph Curry? And there's a guy who, old school, has stayed in one place.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what, it's interesting. We refer to it like as old school. There weren't that many guys that did it old school. Right? Charles didn't do it.
Nope.
It is a funny phrase. We use that all the time. Like, old school, when they all stayed in one team the whole time. I'm like whom?
Yeah, before free agency.
Magic Johnson.
Tony Gwynn.
But, like, Magic Johnson only because his career got cut short.
You don't know that.
Well, maybe. Larry Bird because his career got cut short. Keem Olajuwon ended up getting traded. Tim Duncan stayed on the same team the whole time. And I don't even know if that's old school.
Got traded.
Huh?
Yeah. Willie Mays got traded. I think that maybe at the end there you see that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, right.
But But, well, yeah, so take it at a higher level. You talk about players getting traded. How about, and you can witness this firsthand, Seattle to Oklahoma City. That's far worse than a freaking player getting traded.
Right. What do you guys think of the 10-minute quarters?
Don't like it. Just moving the bag back at first base to get rid of the close plays.
Explain.
The games are going on too long. It's hurting viewership. I don't buy it. I think what's hurting viewership is that the stars don't play and that fans know, having watched the Heat go from deep in the playoff field to the NBA Finals, having watched the Lakers go from deep in the field to the conference finals, the players, the coaches, the owners, the fans are all savvy to the fact the regular season, is there really that much at stake? It doesn't look like it. I mean, there's something. You gotta qualify. Maybe you do want, top 4. But man, nobody worries about being a 1, 2, and 3 seed the way they used to. They're just worried about being healthy. And maybe it's more injuries. It's just the time. I think that if they shave 2 minutes off, that's going to make the games better. It's going to make guys play more or play harder or be more invested. I don't think so. I think they're still going to value the playoffs way over the regular season and figure out how to game the regular season to get through it and get just enough to set themselves up for the playoffs.
All right, I don't love it, but you want me to make the argument for it?
Please, go ahead.
I don't think players would play less. So I think you'd have 40-minute games in which your best players are on the floor for 36, 37 minutes. So you come to the game, you get Giannis every second that he's there, virtually. And that's from a viewership standpoint and a fan standpoint, that's pretty great. Because the problem with Major League Baseball is you go watch Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani, and then you don't see him again for an hour. That's why the golden at-bat's so smart, if they ever do it. It's, in the NFL, at least you get Patrick Mahomes every other drive. You don't get him every play, but you get him, you get Lamar Jackson the rest of the time. So I do think from a fan standpoint, I'm not in love with just getting it to 2 hours and making a TV window and all that. Like, sometimes I think Adam Silver's too obsessed with turning basketball into soccer. And that is, but I do think there's something interesting that you actually just kind of make it it's a 5-man game now. Like, those 5 players matter. They're who you connect to. Your bench players are playing, you're playing an 8-man rotation. Your backup center's playing 5 minutes. Your backup guard and wing players are playing like 12 to 14 minutes. If there's an injury, it's not as big a deal because that just your 6th man steps in to play 30 minutes instead of your 9th man. And I also think it opens up the door for a wider expansion. You could probably, if you do that, you could add 4 teams instead of 2 because you just don't need to play players anymore. There's some trickle-down effects that are really and what the impact of the league it would have would be dramatic. But from a viewership standpoint, the idea that I could get Jokic for 36 of the 40 minutes and Giannis for, 90% of the time that the game's going on, I'm seeing the best players, I think it's good. I also think it's good that, I get them together. One of the things that smartly most coaches other than Michael Malone have done is that they stagger their stars, but I'd rather see them together playing, more often. So that would be the positive on it, is you eliminate minutes by players nobody cares about.
Yeah, great. And then we'd have even more teams tanking because those dominant players would be even more dominant and your roster would be irrelevant. And that's why baseball, the fact that Shohei Ohtani doesn't bat 5 times a game and you need a full roster to compete and you need bullpen guys so you don't have the same teams winning all the time because you only need a few players. That's the beauty of baseball. That's not the negative. I'll go to war on that one because you've said that many times. And you don't have a Bucky bleeping Dent that lives on 50 years after, and you wouldn't have that in another sport like that. The best we got is Robert Horry of a role player making a big difference like that. Otherwise, it's the dominant stars, and they'd be even more dominant in that case.
They would be. I mean, that's the downside, right? Like, if you're trying to build a roster with depth, which is probably what the Utah Jazz have to do to be able to win, you would have a very hard time doing it. But yes, Denver becomes the best team in the league because they have Jokic.
But I will say the Summer Olympics just this past summer, and this was the middle of the afternoon because of the time difference, I was watching it. in the final, but I had my adult daughter and my wife were watching it because it was so gripping. And obviously the U.S., the stakes there. But the fact that the game was only 40 minutes had no bearing on them whatsoever. I don't even think they knew. But yet all three of us were in the TV room in our house, the family room, and we were all over that game. So it made no difference that the game was 8 minutes fewer compared to the NBA. They were into it hardcore. So there's a lot of positives. What I would like to see is stop going to Secaucus, particularly in the regular season, all the time, and taking 5 minutes to come up with a freaking ruling on something that, who cares? It's a regular season game. And so it's like they've reduced the amount of times of stoppage in college with so the actual game itself goes quicker. But they increased the timeouts. They're like 5-minute breaks now. So the time you're at the stadium is still the same. What's the difference?
You had a lot of things there. The question on the Olympics, was it gripping because it was 10-minute quarters? And because you felt an immediacy in that fourth quarter against Serbia, you felt it almost immediately that you had to
get going.
They had to come back and make plays.
Because they don't have 8 extra minutes. I did, but I don't know if my wife and daughter did. But I knew it, and I think, man, this is going to be really tough. And then Curry took over, and it was awesome in the middle of the summer. Basketball, I was just as much into it as I would any NBA Finals.
Yeah, I, by the way, still am a fan. If I'm making changes to the league, I'm going to the Elam ending, the set point. Like, I'm watching Undefeated, the women's 3-on-3 league. It's great. Like, it changes. It really adds a dynamic to the end of the game. It's really, really interesting. And I think, it actually keeps fouling out of the game and some things like that late in games. It's really good. So if you want another change, I would go to the Elam ending where it's a set point total that's set as we open the fourth quarter. And, I just think it gives the fans a game-winning shot at the end of every night, which is exciting, even if it's a 20-point blowout. And I do think it changes strategy into the game in a better way than it would otherwise. So I think that would be we're going to start blowing up the game into 10-minute quarters and really just adjusting it, which I do admire the NBA for always thinking about. I would do that. The other one I would say on Secaucus, I am about to get to the stage, and I know coaches would disagree on this one. Like, can we ever rule that if you're up 15 or down 15, you can't challenge?
Yes, you took the words. I was waiting for you to come up for air because there was a review in that game last night. It was a 24-point game, and there was a review with like 2.5 or 3.5 minutes left. It was ridiculous. The Jazz had waved the white flag long before that. Let's just keep going. I don't care who that ball was off of or if somebody blocked or I don't even remember what the review was for because I didn't care. It was over, and it had been over.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I think the Elon ending is the one thing in everything we've talked about I'd really be interested in because the fouling at the end of the games and the free throw shooting contest, not what we're here for.
No.
That's not it. And it's especially a problem in college. It was brilliant by the mayor, Fred Hoiberg. But at the end of Nebraska-Illinois last night, which I was watching because potential Jazz draft pick and the Jazz game was out of hand, and watching at the end, there was like 20 seconds left, and Nebraska correctly, with 3 fouls to give, figured, hey, they're going to dribble out some of the time because they want to go to overtime. So they waited, and then they fouled with like 12 seconds left, 8 seconds left, 4 seconds left, and Illinois can never get a shot off. It was horrible for the sport. It was excellent to win the game, and Nebraska did win the game in overtime, so it all paid off. It was very smart, but it was horrible entertainment. And this is still entertainment.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the key on all these conversations is we have to remember that it's entertainment. And I don't know, I am a little moved. I got to say, TK, I understand all the problems with it, like what it does to the game. I am a little moved by the idea that I turn on an NBA game, and if Milwaukee's playing, and if it's a national broadcast, you're turning on because you want to see individual players, right? Bucks fans are tuning in because they're Bucks fans. But you're seeing LeBron and Steph have moved the ratings for a decade. Those are the two. So whoever the next ones are, Cooper Flagg or whoever else, and the fact that I would get to see them for almost every second they're on the floor, I understand the problem, but from a viewership and entertainment standpoint, like Tom Cruise is in every scene. Like, I think there's something to that.
We'll leave it right there, David. We appreciate it, as always, especially the big wind-up on the intro. That was really good.
Well, I can do a big wind-up on the outro, too, to two of the greatest of all time. A morning show that's run longer than the fungus between PK's toes.
Okay.
It is something awesome. It is PK and DJ. It's on, let's see, what station are you guys on? What is your out to now? 97.5 or you 1280 or what do you do? Just the Zone,
do whatever
Zone Sports Network?
Do whatever you want. There's no rules.
PK, it's the 9 o'clock hour coming up. More great guests, more kind comments. Hopefully, dear God, PK doesn't sing. It's next on 97.5, 1280 KSL Sports Zone.